Hello,
Hello?
how are you?
Hi, I can't see you.
Yeah, I'm having issues over here.
Camera. Yeah, it looks like your camera is off.
Uh, yeah, ahora. Uh,
There we
Action.
go. Hello.
How are you, Taigwei?
Way. Thank you so much, Hahom, for doing this with me. It's really great to finally meet you, connect sort of in person.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Where are you connecting from?
Right now, I am right outside of Philadelphia in South Jersey.
Oh, okay. So you're not far from Lancaster then.
No, no, not at all. I used to go out there all the time, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
my mother lives, I'm at my mother's house right now. I live in DC normally, but I came to help her with some stuff. So this is where I grew up. This is my childhood bedroom and everything that you're seeing right
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
now. But yeah, I hope everything's going all right for you and your family during all this uh, pandemic and everything.
Home, thank you, and likewise to you.
Yep. Um, so really appreciate, pardon me, let me just turn this off. So really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. As you might know, our committee and everything is actually having a meeting with some researchers from Harvard tomorrow too.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yep, to discuss Taino heritage and genealogy in the modern Caribbean setting, and even wider than that into the United States as well.
Mhm.
So if you want to start by just introducing who you are, you can give your name and official title as well as your Taino name, whatever you prefer.
I'll do the government name
Okay. And as long
and
as
my Taino name, of course.
okay, and as long as it's okay with you, I will be recording this. If that's
That's fine.
okay, great.
I'm used to that.
Okay, yeah, yeah, you're famous, right? All right, so go right ahead.
Taigüey, daka Taino, daka Tequina Guamoel. My government name or my given name from my family members is actually Rafael Torres. Eh, Tequina Guamoel, Tequina is a spokesperson in the Yukayeke. He was the one. He actually led songs in during Areitos.
Really?
He was the leader of the songs.
Wow.
Some of the research has him has him going to the different Yukayekes representing the cacique,
Hmm.
and Guamoel is el hijo del guamo. El guamo is the conch shell,
Right.
which was used to. It's kind of sort of like the cell phone today. To sound the alarm, the call to meetings. So sometimes, even today in 2020, you could still hear the guamo uh, in the Taino communities. You'll see pictures. We're blowing guamos right before ceremonies about to start. Very important that everyone comes to attention and shows reverence and respect for the native ceremony that we're about to give. It's important because it also connects us with our ancestors.
Right.
That's why we do
Yeah.
genealogy, right?
Correct.
And you want to. I mean, I always say this: you can do whatever you want, but we choose those of us that are interested in our native culture to at least show the respect, show the connection.
Hmm.
It's not just, it's not just the talk. You have to walk the walk too. So um, we're Yukayeke Manicato.
Right.
Yukayeke Manicato is the Taino village from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was two families, the Cruz family and the Torres family, who got together back in 2013. And we decided to get together and form not just the Yukayeke, but also with the vision of educating. That's where If you've done the research, or I'm going to share Manicato Taino Cultural Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization where we started. Cacique bought a home. Cacique Guatuiri buys a home in Lancaster in one of the, some people call it one of the worst areas of the city. And we convert it into our sacred space, an educational space, a space dedicated to anyone from Native cultures and Native families to come and share with us, the Taino family, in our full moon ceremony, which we use where our bejiques are guided under the Kane Spiritual Circle. Kane Spiritual Circle was started by Miguel Segui during the revival of the Taino movement. So there's different interpretations depending on which writings you want to follow.
Right.
If you studied Taino history, Pane is one of the ones who writes about the Taino and their ceremonies and so forth. And just like in modern times, there's different interpretations, and people pick it to do it one side, and people pick the other side.
Sure.
Our goal, the Torres and the Cruz family, starting Yukayeke Manicato, was and still is the educational piece.
Right.
Because we've had many conversations with people, the conquest. What did the conquest bring? It brought the separation of families. It brought the battle of the spirituality, the way that we, the native people, spiritually connected with the way that the Europeans spiritually connected. Then they imposed their will on us by conquering and dividing our native families. The native, and we're talking about genealogy, that, the strand is typically or has been preserved by the female line.
Right, matrilineally, yes.
Exactly. So the women were the ones that were taken on as wives, as concubines. The men were separated, enslaved, and, killed. The women were the one, like, for instance, in my family, personally, my grandmother, one of my grandmothers, who is originally from Peñuelas, Puerto Rico, which is in the region where Cacique Agüeybaná, Agüeybaná had his Yukayeke. He was the principal cacique.
Very familiar with him, yes.
With my family, our lineage, our heritage, our Native American, and I dare say that, Native American.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah. Go right ahead. Yeah. I would say the same.
Because even that's controversial too.
I know. It's but
and that
the America, Native American can mean anywhere from North all the way to South America and beyond. So
that is where the education piece comes in. Okay, so let's have the space, Yukayeke Manicato, the Taino Cultural Center. Let's have it there because people are in different stages of their journey. Some go full throttle, and when I say full throttle, I'm talking about from beginning to end, they're in it 110%, spiritually, they'll live the life even in 2020. Some people just pick to still honor the ancestors by remembering them, by still participating and being a part of it in the learning process and also in the teaching process. because teaching is not just, talking. It's also exhibiting. So what we've done as a Yukayeke with Cacique Guaturi's leadership is to go out and find pieces that we can preserve, that we can share with others, that is there. It's our cultural, it's our lineage, it's our connection. And why not exhibit it, the art? We have a lot of modern day Taino brothers and sisters
Mhm.
that are practicing the art, beading,
Mhm.
pottery. Um, there's a Taino brother in Boriquén who's going out to the rivers and picking out stones and turning them into beautiful necklaces,
Yeah, I just was speaking with Cacique Jorge Estevez, who
Yeah.
makes headdresses,
And Cacique with the headdress. So
beautiful headdresses, like
yes,
and
yes,
learning the value of each of those feathers and
exactly.
the ritual and ceremony associated with actually making the headdress for non-commercial purposes.
So everyone has something to offer. We're not experts. I hope not, because nobody's perfect, but we're not experts in everything, but we can bring something to the table, bring a talent, bring a gift, because, it's also a choice, a matter of choosing the words.
Of course.
Um, and with the idea of celebrating and preserving the rich cultural history that honors our native ancestors, because even the word Taino is controversial.
Yes, yes. I've heard that. I know. No, yeah.
but
Seen
it's
it
like
all.
salsa. I love salsa, and
Yeah,
even that's controversial.
yeah, yeah. Not that Hibaro or Guajiro or whatever. I mean,
Well, I mean, I look at it as a commercial name,
right,
because
right.
I am not, who am I to sit there and tell you that you're right, or who am I to sit there and tell you that you're wrong?
Right,
Uh, Unfortunately, our native ancestors didn't write stuff down. They were
right, right.
oratory society. The colonial conquest of the conquering and dividing, the secrets, because our native families, the women, or just our native families weren't allowed to talk about ceremonies, ritual, language, and
Of
so
course.
forth. Um, Especially, in Borinquen, which is where my family's from. We've gone through the colonial oppression of Spain. Then we were gifted, quote unquote, as war booty to the U.S.
We were too, but then we
Yeah, well,
we fought back on that. But yeah.
viva Borinquen.
Yeah. So we were in the same boat. We just went in a very
Pues somos dos
extreme.
pájaros, la misma, somos dos alas del mismo pájaro. We have the
Yeah.
same. Our history is pretty much the same.
Yep.
Um, and we're still struggling, even now with the new colonial master.
Right.
So what do we do with all of that? We could just say, who cares? Some people do. Some of us choose not to. I had a radio show, for instance. That's why my name Guamoen.
Speaker
I
or
had a
speaker or
Guamoel is the son of El Guamo,
yeah.
the
So
conch
it,
shell,
it has to do with
with speaking.
yeah
Yeah.
being the
So I was on a radio show, or I produced a radio show called Puerto Rico al Día, Puerto Rico Today.
right.
And when I decided to own the show and produce it, you have to start from the very beginning. You can't just sit there and start from, let's say, 2018.
Sure.
You have to go back and research. And that's what I did. I did a lot of research. So a lot of folks during my 8 years, every Monday from 6 to 7, faithfully for 8 years, I talked about history. And I made sure that I started with the native people, period.
Of course.
You know, and then educating folks, with the language, the foods that we eat. I mean, I can go to a bodega right now and we're still eating guayaba.
Oh, yeah. Baba con queso.
In la bodega, in the corner store, and there's yuca there,
Yeah, oh my
and
God.
in a bag it says Goya
I
yuca.
know, yeah. Chicharrones,
So
all
and so today in modern times, teach people that we're still connected, through music with the instruments, through the foods that we eat, even the customs. I'm a little over on 50 side, and I
a
remember
little.
un chin nada más,
Yeah.
chin.
Yeah.
And even the word chin is native for that same thing a little bit.
Right. I had to do did a whole thing of all the modern words, both in English and Spanish, that come from Taino word: barbecue and
Barbacoa,
iguana and
yeah.
maraca, yeah, everything. Like
There you go. See,
yeah.
maraca. So through the arts, through language, through music, literature, traditions. As a kid, I was wondering why my grandmother would choose to eat out of a gourd. I didn't know what it was. All I knew was this brown bowl, and it was a gold, not dita, as we call it in Boriqueñ. And she didn't want to use the ceramic plates,
Right.
so she would eat out of her special bowl. That was her connection to her native, just a lot of things. And if we understood where we came from, then we wouldn't struggle with, trying to fit in, trying to fit in with other people and trying to assimilate their culture, their ways of being.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the Spanish language. I appreciate some things. Not everything was good,
Right.
and the bad things, so you have to look at the whole picture and make an honest assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that we're going to go out and seek revenge, for what they did to our native families? No. But we could still honor them and remember them through sharing and preserving their stories and everything that was good about them, because we all have good, some folks, well, the bad overtakes the good, but I always knew, like, my grandmother on my mom's side, she's the indigenous one.
Right.
Or the one with the native feature. She was the one that was talking to us about the Taino heritage.
Mine too.
And as a kid, I remember going to school in Puerto Rico and here in the U.S. and hearing the history on both sides. Mm-hmm. When I would go to Puerto Rico, y los españoles llegaron y los indios murieron. That's pretty much how they.
Yeah.
Y los indios murieron.
Yeah.
And then at home it was like, okay, so in school they're telling me que los indios murieron.
We're all dead.
But check this one out. It gets better. It says, my father sits there and says, estoy casado con la india más bella de Boriqueñ. Hey, wait a minute. But I was just told in school that all the Indians died.
Oh my God.
But my mom's an Indian.
Right.
And my dad married the most beautiful Indian of Boriqueñ,
Right.
Come on,
Yeah. I remember having a similar moment too, because my father was white American, German, Irish, mother is from Cuba, and I had heard those same stories from my grandmother. It's always the women that are the ones carrying the stories. And I think that's very symbolic in of itself. But I remember when we were first learning about Columbus and his encounter with the natives of Hispaniola in the Caribbean. And then my teacher said, he's like, and then they were all killed. And I was like, but, oh, okay. And then and I came home and told my mom, and she went, what? They said they all, they're like, a lot were killed, that's true, but no, they're not all gone.
And sadly, that you know what our Caribbean families, our native families went through, is the same script that the uh, the North American,
Yeah,
the ones here in the U.S.
of course,
and
yeah,
up in Canada, they went through the same thing too. You know,
sure.
we just had a jump start on the you know
Colonization.
on the colonization.
We were the first, some of the first to get.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you know, it's interesting too that we should make a concerted effort to also be available to teach our Northern American families about us.
so your center, you said native people of all kinds, so
So,
anybody from any indigenous background.
so one of the questions that you wanted or that you had sent earlier was, do we have membership? No,
Right.
we
No.
don't have
Okay.
membership. Why? Because membership for us, for the leadership of Yukayeke Manicato, for us, we feel that it just makes us like everybody else, like all the other religious, you know, groups. You know, our focus is family. You know, we're all one big family. We just come from different areas, you know, and some of us speak a different native language, you know, but we're all one big native family. So we don't want to label, we don't want people to feel that they can't come and share with us, you know, just like we go out and share with them during powwows. It's the same thing, right?
Right.
But then I used to, many of our uh, family members that share with us at Yukayeke Manicato, we used to think, hey, we go out and share with powwows. What's going on with us? What? We don't have history. We don't have something similar to that. So that's why we made that effort to do that. Not together as a group in 2013, but even way before that. Remember, I told you I started the radio show, uh, and I was teaching that in 2005, 2006, talking about our native history. And then some of the other folks that are still with us in the leadership team, you know, they started either listening to my show or doing their own research and then getting together. So at our center, you're welcome. Our Taino brothers or our native families from all over the Caribbean have come and visited us, many of them from Mexico, the Apache. We've had Crees from Canada. They'll Google us. They'll be in the area in Lancaster, and they'll look for something native, and they'll come and call us and share. So there's no actual
Formal member.
tribal or formal membership. No.
Right.
Our what we want is for people to feel comfortable to come share and share their, you know, share their talents with us, their art, bring something to the table. Um, So some of the other questions that you asked was affiliation, tribal affiliation. Our affiliation is familia, family. That's our affiliation. You know,
Yeah.
that when one of our family members is sick or is in need, like our family, Navajo family is out west
Yes.
that are struggling with, you know, this COVID-19. They have one of the
And
highest
the
rates
whole
as far
fee.
as here in the U.S., you know, that they need help, that we go out and do what we can to help our native families out west. When Boriken goes through a lot of things that they've been going through recently with Hurricane Maria, Irma, the earthquakes, you know, that we're there to help our family members there, no matter where we are, you know. So for us, affiliation, you know, affiliation should be that we're there for each other, that we're supporting each other, that we're doing this on Facebook, you know, when somebody's sharing some pretty neat
Yeah.
photos and pictures of their native culture from Jamaica, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, you know, without you know, prejudice, you know, preconceived ideas, or just plain old wanting to have it your way, you know. It's not about that. I don't think it was ever about that. You know, it was about us taking care of each other and being there for each other and working towards, you know, the greater good, the common goals. So I applaud you and your group for, you know, for what you're doing. You know, count me in, count us in. Um, and that's pretty much who we are as a group, and our sentiment as a whole. You
Right.
know?
So I just think it's so interesting, and why I specifically asked to do your interview was because just to learn that, you know, that this community, you know, you hear about these kind of Taino Yukayeke springing up in New York, Union City, places where you think of there's a high Poriquen or Cubano population, you know, people of the Caribbean. So
Yeah.
when I heard Lancaster, I was like, I grew up right near there, and I used to go to Lancaster every summer when I was a kid, and all I knew about was the Amish. You know, that's what people think
Yeah.
of when they think of Lancaster. And, you know, as I said, my father was of Irish and Germanic heritage, so
Yeah.
I was exposed to all that very, you know, from a very young age whenever I go out, and I was like, I never would think a Yukayeke would spring up in Lancaster of all places. And it was so cool to me because it just really it shows just how we are everywhere. You know, the diaspora is not just limited to the Caribbean or to those, you know, those neighborhoods in the US that people associate as being of one, you know, ethnic community of Puertorriqueños or Cubans or Dominican, whoever.
Yeah.
There's as long as you have, it can be anywhere, it can be there, or it can be, you know, middle of wherever, as long as you have the, you know, the people and the spirit and the willingness to do it. You know, it's amazing where those things spring up. And I just was like, really, when I saw this, I was like, I want to do this one because I know Lancaster really well. And if I had known, like, last time I was there that you guys were there, I definitely would have checked it out. But
Well,
it's
the
funny.
invitation is still there.
Yeah, definitely, of course.
After we get through this mess of social distancing,
Right, exactly.
what we wanted was just to have the a space for us to be able to get together, you know, and just be able to share, you know.
Right, of
Uh, why Lancaster? Why not? I mean,
course.
I remember I had the radio show there.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
my family was there. The Cruz family was there.
Right. It's
But
just
you
funny
know,
that that's where you ended up, and that's where it, like, you know, it's where you put down roots and you the
and
amazing
the
thing.
cool thing about it too is, and I mentioned this earlier, that we've had visitors from all the way out west and
Right, right.
Canada and Caribbean. So even stateside, on a regular basis, we get visitors that share with us on during our ceremony weekends, from New Jersey,
Yeah.
from throughout Pennsylvania.
Yep.
We get them from Florida. We've seen folks from Florida come up. So you can be on vacation, and that's just one of your tour stops or one of the places of interest that you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
come
Because
in.
it's people talk about going to Lancaster, I'm going for the Amish country and everything. It's like you'd never think that there's this whole
Yeah.
other, you know, experience there. People forget that, you know, all this land was native at one point, and
And you want to know something, that the native, some of the native groups that are there appreciate us having presence there.
Right. Yeah. I believe
So
so.
much so, sorry,
No problem.
so much so that we've been asked to take leadership in some of the local native activities. Why? Because there's no representation of the Conestoga that used to be there. So
Right. Yeah.
because we're there officially, you know, recognized as a nonprofit organization by the state and feds, they look to us to take the lead. But at times, you know, you have to be careful too. You know, you can't just. Sometimes we feel like we don't want to overstep,
Sure.
you know, our boundaries and possibly, you know, disrespect someone or whatever. You know,
Of course. But
we're on
that's
to be.
quite, I mean, I understand why they would,
Yeah,
they would.
yeah, and you know they do, but then at the same time we're like, okay, but I mean, I was born in Lancaster, but you know, my heart and my native connection is not in Lancaster.
Right. Right.
It's in Boriken, you know,
Right.
but
And for people like those of us of native descent, where land and, you know, where your people come from is such a big, you're such a part of, so much part of your spirituality and your
you know,
epistemology. It's, yeah, it's that connection when you feel like you're displaced, and um it can be a
we
little bit of a you know, a tough thing to navigate. I understand.
we we struggle with that. You know, you said displaced, but then at the same time, since we've taken ownership of this, you know, this home, and we called it our home and our space, then you know we still well, of course we feel connected. That we're not when we're not there. Oh my God, you know, we're like, oh, we haven't been to the center in a long time. You know,
Yeah.
especially now with the social distancing.
Right. Right.
Uh, but the door's open for you, for our native family and friends. You mentioned Cacique eh, Jorge Esteves.
Yes. Yes.
He went to the center. He was in awe as soon
Yeah,
as
I
he
believe
opened
he's
the door.
in Connecticut, but I think
Yeah,
he
he came
travels.
to Lancaster. He was in Lancaster for a weekend or on a Saturday, and he
Right.
came over and his
Oh yeah,
family.
I would go up for just a week. I mean, from here it's barely an hour, if that, or so, to drive from here. And when I,
Yeah.
like I said, when I was a kid, we went up all the time. That's what I say. I was like, that is the last thing I would expect to find in all those you know, all the Amish country and the
Yeah.
farms. And so
So
that's why I was so excited when I saw. I was like, oh my God! And I looked up your center. I was like, wow, they are in Lancaster. That's amazing.
yeah,
I
and
want to know how this happens.
and we have you know, our native families from Cuba, from Dominican Republic, Haiti or Haiti, and of course Puerto Rico. You know, they've all many have come to the center. So like I said, you know, it's open. It's an open space for everyone to come and share with us for sure.
Right. And you mentioned, you said you do like some where you go and teach outside the center as well. How
Most definitely, most definitely. We go out to schools, activities, festivals. I mean, if we could go, we're in a full year. We could be busy from May all the way through typically November, where we're in the schools, we're at festivals, parades, powwows,
right.
and all of that. It's a lot, but you know, people want are a lot of folks are wanting to learn,
Right, of course.
and want us to teach them, and so colleges, high schools. If you go on our Manicato Taino Cultural Center webpage, you'll see a lot of our past
Right. Yeah,
history of
that's what I was
activity.
looking through.
And I've
Yeah.
even gone on military bases. They've called us and reached out to us. Government offices that have asked us to present
Wow.
local, state, and even the federal government. So,
Wow. Yeah. 'Cause in DC, I do a lot of work at the National Museum for the American Indian. Your place.
oh, you do?
Yeah. Um,
Awesome.
yeah. Yeah. So that's a Smithsonian owned institution. So that's government. So we bring in, you know, people all the time, from all over the country. So I'll put in a word with them. Hopefully, maybe we can get you guys to come out there, because that's not even that far. And I think that would be, you know, that's exactly
Is that
bring
is
in.
that where the exhibits are at?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
artifacts?
yep. We have a lot of, and it's all, you know, the board is all indigenous people, and academics, scholars, and everything. That it started as a government organization because it is under the Smithsonian umbrella,
Yeah.
but it really is mainly Native people and indigenous people who have taken the initiatives with curating the exhibits and
Oh wow.
the events that we do. The festival, we host a ton of festivals and lectures, and we even do a lot around Day of the Dead because of the indigenous connection to that. We do a lot. We bring people from everywhere. We did a whole exhibit recently, even with Native Hawaiian people.
Awesome.
So, you know, we call ourselves the Museum of the American Indian, but it's really, I think we're very inclusive of indigenous people from everywhere. And if they have something to share, and again, it's, you know, it's a government museum, so it's free, it's nonprofit, it's, you know, anyone can come in, and there's a lot of really great things to see. And it's very, unlike a lot of the other museums, I feel like in the Smithsonian, where it's more like you're just kind of walking around looking at things like artifacts and pictures, and we do have those too, but we really like to emphasize the idea that Native people are living and now and current. This is not something from, I mean, some of it is, yes, we have a long history, but we don't want people to think, oh, this is a dead ancient thing, like, you know, the artifacts, the ancient Egyptian artifacts or whatever that you see in the other museums. We want people to know that these cultures are still here and present and thriving, and we really like to emphasize that. So that's why we like to have interactive exhibits where actual people from various different tribal nations and communities come in to either do a dance lesson or a food way. We do cooking lessons for certain types of foods. We have a great cafe dining hall. We serve buffalo, we serve fry bread. It's great. We have, you know, people come in, teach us a certain like basket weaving, or storytellers. We have lots of great storytellers, musicians. So that's really our focus to do, is to make this an interactive museum where you have an actual experience with Native people who are still alive and present, because we don't want to promote that idea that they are, and the culture is a relic, you know.
Yeah.
We want, yes, the history is important, but it's also important to see how the people are carrying on and preserving the culture. So that's
And
why I will I'll put in a good word with you guys and see if we can reach out, or with them, and see if we can bring you guys around when things start opening again.
yeah, we do the same thing. That was our premise for the cultural centers, to be able to offer the workshops.
Right.
And we actually, our day typically starts, it's an all-day event for us. We do a community cleanup called Atabey 360. Atabey is Mother Earth,
Yeah.
360, the circumference. And we go out, and what we do is we've adopted the actual block where the center is.
Oh, okay.
And we clean it once a month. Try to go, depending on the amount of members that show up, and just, you know, just show people that we care and that we're there, that we're invested in the community. And still to this day, you know, the center's there by itself. No one's there, and everybody knows on the block. So, you know,
Right.
it's well protected,
Good.
it's preserved and respected. We do pottery. We do this, mainly pottery, because our cacique Guatuiri, he's become an avid student in pottery, so he tries it at home, and then he shares it with us.
Great. Yeah, that's really, like, and I'm a fan of that kind of, we have a whole children's center as well, because obviously it's really important to reach out to people at a young age about this, and they learn better from hands-on things they can experience and see and touch. So the National Museum of the American Indian opened a whole interactive children's learning center that they do like a workshop every day and lessons every day, and I am really a big fan of that way of learning as well. Specialized a lot with like children and young people, and I work at a university now, um, so it's really great to hear. I mean, obviously there's an importance of artifacts and looking at artifacts, and I studied archaeology and anthropology. I love artifacts too. But I am always a fan of hands-on learning as well, and learning through experience.
Yeah, everybody has different learning styles, so you can't just be oratory. I can go on and talk for hours on end
Right,
without
right.
taking a
But
breath.
I have a master's in folklore, and so I recognize oral tradition is the basis of everything. I mean, without that, we'd have nothing. And especially in indigenous culture, where a lot of times things weren't written down, and that the idea of the mainly colonist Eurocentric mindset that, well, if something isn't written down, it dies and it disappears and it's gone. And I think we and anybody else of native descent or of any culture that had practiced oral tradition have proved emphatically that's not true. And this is, what you even mentioned about your grandmother and everything. We have proof of that is not, you don't have to write something down to carry it on and preserve it. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff around us. We just have to open our eyes and ask.
Yeah, exactly.
Ask the questions, be open about it too.
Right.
I like to use Memorial Day because it's officially the first day of summer here in the U.S. And it's interesting, right? Because a lot of people like to swing in their hammocks, right?
That's all right. Yeah.
While they're doing their.
I was like, that's our barbecue, hammock, everything. That's
So it's like a thought for when Memorial Day comes around, I'm like, that's a Taino holiday too. They
it is definitely anything. Yeah, any summer holiday where you're barbecuing or swinging in your hammocks, playing music,
and some of them smoking a tobacco too.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. That's so funny. I was saying the same thing the other day to somebody, and they were like, "Oh no, hammocks have been around." I'm like, "Nah, hammocks were ours. Look it up. It's a thing." But I think the one question we haven't covered. I know with the pandemic, and now there's so much uncertainty, and with when are things going to start? When can we get back to life again? But do you have any specific future events already planned that you're excited about or want to share with us?
Right now, we're just because of the social distancing, the reinfection. Supposedly, there's a couple waves coming. Now with the reopen movement that's going on, so we're gonna see what happens with that. There's no vaccine.
Right.
Some folks again getting it twice. Some reports are coming out. Some of the kids are getting it pretty bad. Then you got the school coming up in August, so that's another concern there. We do the ceremonies. We're doing them through Zoom. Once a month.
Oh, great.
We're active on social media. Nothing stops. Nothing that stopped with us per se. It's just that we want to be able to be, practice the CDC guidelines and stuff like that. But there's not.
We've had enough history of disease and everything. It ain't the first time around for this. We know it.
No, it's not. It's not. I think it's up to us to just be relevant in by using the social media platforms and still educate, and put out stories, put out photos and things like that for people to still maintain that connection,
Of course.
So,
and it's great that we have the means to do that in this modern age.
It's, you just got to keep up with the times and, and be open-minded, our ancestors, our native ancestors, were very smart. You know, they they found their ways. You know, and they found ways to, you know, share with us. Even still today. I mean, look at that. We're still talking about them. And
Yep.
what date is it? 2020.
Yep. Yep. I know.
So
Even my father said at one point, he's like, when my mom would talk about them, he's like, I thought they were all killed. He's like, I'm pretty sure I read that they all were extinct. And my mother would get very defensive.
no,
And my father was an educated man. You know, he went to college, law
yeah,
school, study. Like, you know, I don't think people mean to be ignorant of those kind of things, but that's the ideas that have been perpetuated through a
yeah,
lot of, you know, history, the way it's been written, and a lot of the colonial mindset of especially the early tribes is,
yeah.
you know, wiped out and gone, and, you know, like
I think
make them
I
a relic, like I said.
well, remember that with their conquest, they always wanted the native people to look bad. You
Right.
know, so anything that we did, anything that we said, you know, we were godless, we were savages,
Cannibals.
huh?
Cannibals.
Cannibal, uneducated, you know, whatever. They would find some kind of adjective to describe us in a negative light, you know. And a lot of us still struggle with that too, even today, you know, with all the ethnic injustices that are going on. And when I say ethnic, you know, I'm not just talking about culturally, you know, I'm talking about, you know, even with gender, you know, the gender, the social, just all these things. They're always finding a way to put us where they want us, and put us all in a bad light, you know. And some of us just like the guasabara, which, you know, we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight all the way to the end. Uh, no one's gonna take that away from us. You know, they're not gonna take away that spirit just because you said so. You know,
Right.
that doesn't work. It only works when you're a little kid and you have to obey your, you know, your adults and, you know, those people around you. But there comes a time where it gets, you know, you cut it off, and then you start learning on your own, which is what happened to me. Um, I grew up in Puerto Rico where you couldn't look at your parents. You couldn't look at them in your eyes. You couldn't challenge them. You know, you had to
Yeah.
stay quiet. You know, you had to show reverence,
Right.
obedience, you know. But then we become adults, and then what? You know. So then we start searching. We start looking for books and looking for answers and asking people, you know, the questions and so forth.
Right. And
And even,
great.
you know, and it's sad to say that even with the DNA testing, you know, where you can sit there and say, well, you know, the genealogy says I have 14, 16, 20%, you know, Native American. They still don't want to sit there and accept that. You know, they don't want to believe. They don't want to sit there and you know, for whatever XYZ reason. That's why we don't ask, we as a Yukayeke, we don't ask for your papers.
Right. Right.
You know, show us that you're native or that you have native ancestry. Who am I to sit there and question you
Right.
how you feel, you know,
Right.
and your family, your stories, your native family stories,
Right.
you know.
We've talked about that in our group as well. The whole idea of blood quantum
The blood quantum, yeah.
has become an issue among a lot of the North American tribes, especially when it comes to, you know, tribal membership, tribal heritage, and yeah, and it also, you know, it causes a lot of rifts between tribes and between, you know, people among themselves, and it also plays in my opinion, to part of the colonial mindset as well, because it's like, well, if you break it down and they're only, you know, this much percent, they're technically not native, they technically don't have right to that land anymore, we can take it, but you know what I mean, like eventually if you know, native people are intermarrying and everything, and it gets diluted down to the point where it says, well, if you're below this line, then you're not native anymore. Then that population is going to dwindle, and then they can take more and say, nope, there's nobody who can legitimately call themselves native because they don't meet the blood quantum.
So that happens in Boriken, you know, but can you imagine Puerto Rico, Boriken being an actual Native American reservation, which the island would be? Which the island would be.
Right, exactly.
It wouldn't be their you know, their plaything, which is what they're trying to turn it into.
Right.
By displacing, you know, displacing families so they can keep their unincorporated money laundering territory.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a very, with all the indigenous people I've worked with, they say it's an issue that comes up over and over again. And, you know, obviously different people feel different ways about it, and different tribes have different rules about who can join based on what blood even if you've never been, if you have no knowledge or anything of your indigenous heritage, but here you have what, 25% or something because of a DNA test. That's enough. And as opposed to say somebody who has less but was raised in the tradition and and feels more connected. It's so, just so you know, we share that sentiment in Taino DNA and genealogy. We don't have a blood quantum mindset, or like, what's your percentage of DNA, you know, like, and those tests aren't completely accurate anyway. I mean, even if we wanted to go by, like, they're to a degree accurate, but I mean, you know, what do we one test will say one thing, one test will say another. What do you go by?
Yeah. I don't, you know, that. So for us, you know, again, for Yukayeke Manicato, you know, what other Yukayekes do, that's their choice.
Right.
You know, how they want to do their business is their choice. You know, how we see it, and you know, you can probably criticize the way that we think or the way that we're going about it. We see it as one big family, and we want to be able to embrace, you know, embrace you as long as you come and everyone, you know, comes with respect, you know, and it's not just constantly taking from us and not giving anything in return, because our native ancestors didn't survive that way. Everyone had a purpose, everyone had a job. It was for the greater good of everyone. Yeah, you have caciques, you had your nitainos who had their positions, but you know, it was the survival of the group, the whole group as a whole. You know, not just one individual. Or just one family.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, at least from what I've experienced so far with the Yukayekes I've talked to and the Taino people I've talked to, that seems to be the general mindset of inclusiveness and, you know, openness, and the more familial mindset, and not this idea of you have to tick this in this box to be a part of something like this. And I think that speaks a lot to, you know, who we are and who our ancestors were as a people. This idea of being considered all one family and being open and embracive of each other rather than exclusive based on trivial things.
In our spiritual circle, which is the Bejiques spiritual circle, there's you know, native Bejiques from Cuba, from Boriken, from Jamaica, from the Dominican Republic, you know, and
Haiti, I think you mentioned.
From Haiti.
Yeah.
So, you know, the connection is there, you know. If we want to divide ourselves, then we're having the conqueror's mentality that started putting lines on the lands, you know, being it up for themselves, and you know, you can't cross here or otherwise you're gonna get shot or whatever. Come on now.
Right.
You know, every time I look at a satellite photo of the Earth or our, you know, or of the countries or whatever, I don't see lines on there. All I see is mountains.
Right. Yeah, the whole idea of land ownership of any kind was a colonial concept that was unknown to, anybody in the Americas really until it came in. And so I write this on this piece of paper. That means this is mine. Draw this line. But yeah, so that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the Taino culture in general, because I know not all indigenous groups, from what my experience, are like that. There's not that. In some, there's the rules are more strict, there, and that's their preference. That's how they want to do it. I'm not gonna. I have no place to judge or say that's wrong or right. But I really like how what I've seen so far, at least with the Yukayekes and the people in the Taino I've connected with, is that we seem to push away that mindset and instead have the mindset of inclusiveness and of being familia and, everyone being connected by this. So it's great to hear that and to see that happening. If there's anything else you want to add that you feel is important to get out there, I mean, I think we've gone through most of the questions, but if you have any final messages, anything you want to say.
What I want to share with everyone is, what many of us want to see is we want to see unity. Queremos ver esa unidad familiar. We want to be able to have no boundaries as far as, being able to share, share our thoughts, our ideas, with respect. We have to learn how to respect each other. All of us have something to share. We all have talents. Not all of us are artisans or, our native families had potters, fishermen, hunters, agricultural workers, everybody had a purpose. And we want everyone to find their own purpose and to be able to share their talents and what is good about them for the greater, for the group as a whole. So everyone's welcome to come visit Manicato Taino Cultural Center. Everyone is welcome to come share with Yukayeke Manicato. We are on Facebook, so you can find us.
Yeah, I think I'm already following you. Got all your
Yukayeke Manicato, Cacique Guatuiri is on there. You'll see my face either as Rafael M. Torres, my government name, or Rafi.
También. Yeah.
And we also have a web page on Weebly, Manicato Taino Cultural Center, so you'll find a lot of information there.
I think that's the one. Yeah, that's the one I went on. I think
it has books, free PDF books. It has newspaper articles, current and from the past. What else? It has language books, pictures, because pictures tell stories,
Of course, yep.
We don't always have to talk, the pictures themselves speak about it. So, and you can reach out, give me a call anytime. I'm going to be waiting we're going to be waiting for the invitation to the museum.
Oh yeah. I definitely, as soon as, God, it's so, some of the museums, they're saying in DC, they don't want to open up until 2021 because they're so worried about, Smithsonian hasn't made a decision on that yet, but I know like I used to work for Nat Geo Museum. They've decided that already. Wow. A bunch of the others have, because I guess they're just so worried about, just because museums, a lot of crowding, people touching things. It's and I get, and DC's a city, we're already more at risk because there's more people, public transportation, crowding and everything. I mean, I get it. It's a shame, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes. And a lot of the museums have been trying to make like online exhibits as well during this time, which I think is great to have that, to keep up with the times, like you said. But yeah, I'm definitely going to as soon as we can get started again and open. I mean, obviously I'll already contact my people and tell them, I had to share this interview, share everything. They, whenever we can open again, this is something we should do. And hopefully we'll be able to do that sooner rather than later when it's safe.
Yeah, that's the key right there, is for us to be safe. And
right. I know we're all excited. I mean, trust me, I would love to, it's different states have different rules. Virginia, where I live, is going to start opening up next week. And I don't know how I feel about that. I'm nervous, but Texas already opened up. My brother lives there. He says, yeah, we're completely open again. And I don't know. He's trying to be safe, but
I think, for right now, we ourselves as an individual have to just do our part.
Right. It's hard for us. We're social creatures, and people, especially Native people, we're not good alone. We're people who need to be with each other, together with us.
It's pretty bad for us, for sure.
Yeah, it's wild. But my whole family, and my Cuban family especially, is like, oh, this doesn't make sense not being not being able to just come in your abuela's house and in and out and everything, and it feels wrong. But
it does. It really does.
But unfortunately it's what we have to do, and I'd rather that than lose anybody to something like this. So,
well, Natalie, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Rafael.
Any information, anything that I could share with you, just send me a...
Absolutely. I will, and I'm following you guys on Facebook, but if you're on Facebook, I'll add you. I'll reach out to you if you have your own profile or anything, just so we can communicate more easily. But I have your email as well. So,
all right.
But I really appreciate this. I'm so excited to be able to visit Manicato, Yukayeke when things open up, and get back to Lancaster, because I love it there too. And the work you're doing is amazing, and I'm so appreciative, because if it weren't for people like you doing this, I would never even be able to know as much about my Taino heritage as I do. So, thank you.
I'll share some articles with you. They did an article piece a couple years back on the actual center and our Yukayeke. You could use that. And
great, yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to share, please do. And I'll once we have our meeting with the Harvard researchers tomorrow, if you want to be looped in on what we've talked about or anything, I'd be glad to share that with you as well.
That's fine. Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Please be safe and well. Be healthy. Everybody within reason. Enjoy the weather, but be safe.
Thank you. You do the same.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, well.